Hello, Brian.
Hi, Haley. I love your scarf. It's so festive.
It's traditional sort of Chiapas work,
Yeah,
which I'm very lucky here as they're very vibrant and very good with their textiles in Chiapas.
yeah.
So this is all typical Chiapas. This is
Is that
typical.
right? Yeah, it's
And
pretty.
it's all very vibrant, bright colors, and very much sort of it just changes the theme of things because I feel like in the US, when winter comes along and fall comes along, it's very sort of muted, dusky colors.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
here, regardless of the season, it's just like, wow,
That's great. Because it impacts your mood, doesn't it?
it definitely does. It
Yeah,
definitely does. The market here is incredibly vibrant. So on days where I'm struggling to kind of do my own energy work, I just take a walk even past it or through it, and it's just such a change of colors and hues and
that's great.
world.
Now, is your area decorated heavily for Christmas? That's
So
fun too.
my immediate area, obviously this apartment, Zilcho, just because immediately outside we have this wonderful courtyard that is literally right now Santa's workshop.
Ah, well, I
It's
sent you a bunch of pictures a minute ago of some of the things in our house because I'm a big, you know, decorate for Christmas guy. And Ray and I watch a Christmas movie every night. We get up from our nap, put down our heating pads, sit down on the chair, put our feet up on the ottoman, and start watching these sappy movies, which
is
I
it
can
the
tell you,
same movie?
well, it's different. It's a different movie every night, different
But it's the
actors.
same from last year.
No, we try to watch films that are made, in 2023, or if we haven't seen them before, earlier. But it's always the same plot: is that
Always
a straight man and a straight woman begin with
white,
conflict.
usually white.
Yeah, white. They begin with conflict. They hate each other. Then they fall in love and save the family vineyard or farm or
Coffee shop.
whatever. They save it because that's Christmas, and everyone around them has Merry Christmas. And I even though I know uh, right off the bat what's going to happen, I don't care. I love all the Christmas decorations. I love the good cheer. I'd rather watch that than something a little depressing, which I'll turn on after the new year. But we have fun with it.
I
And
feel
Ray,
like that's carry on.
I was just going to say that Ray lets me decorate as much as I want. Uh, he doesn't really participate in it, but he will help me put things away. The challenge is the dog because the
Oh yeah.
puppy, everyone said, "Oh my God, you can't have any Christmas decorations up. The dog will eat them all." He has not touched one.
Oh wow.
And wait, when you see the pictures that I sent you, you'll be amazed that he hasn't touched anything. But that's because I decorate when he's outside. If I decorated when he was inside, he'd see what I was doing, and he'd want to help by stealing from my hand whatever it was what I was trying
And
to
I wonder
play.
if he's starting now to sort of sense that this is sort of more a permanent home, and sort of
Yeah,
he feels from you how important it is. So he's like, I'm just not going to mess with that.
yeah, well, he'll mess with. He ate the arm of an armchair, uh, which we have to have
You needed a
reupholstered.
new one, didn't you?
Yeah. No, I did not. I had hoped everything we had was going to last us until they carried us out, but it's a challenge, and it's and I knew, Haley, when we bought this dog, I knew that we were going to have things destroyed. So did Ray, and we accepted it. But when
And
it happened, it wasn't what I was expecting would be destroyed.
you
You
were
know,
like,
we
not that.
Not that we've hidden all the pillows, and we've hidden all the throws and things that we could imagine he would get into. But yeah, he ate the arm of an armchair. So, can
It's
I
always a
ask you?
good story, though.
Oh, it's a great story. we're going to talk about something. You've got a great quote, but I just want to find out, how will you celebrate Christmas?
I celebrate Christmas now, preferably alone and completely relaxed. My
Okay.
aim for Christmas Day is to be as relaxed as possible and to be fully present in relaxed.
And how do you achieve that? Do you watch movies or do you just read?
I
Or,
do whatever I feel like I want to do. If I want,
uh-huh.
I'm not really the kind of person on any day, unless I'm sick, to be in my pajamas all day. Even if I'm sick, I'll still change. But if I feel like watching a movie at 10 a.m., which is very odd for me, I'll watch a movie at 10 a.m. And it will be a sappy Christmas movie or it'll be a
Yeah,
sappy romantic movie.
yeah,
Um, if I want to have a piece of chocolate or ice cream for breakfast, I'll have ice cream for breakfast. So it's very much, for me, Christmas Day is very much a day of me celebrating my freedom.
and Haley, is that your Christmas tradition, or do you
It
have?
is now.
Pardon?
It is now.
Okay, and do you have any meals that you prepare for yourself that are typical for Christmas?
Nope.
No. Well, good for you. Good for
Nope.
you.
It's whatever I take into account that probably everything's going to be closed on Christmas Day. So I'll have a think a day before or 2 days before in terms of, okay, what is it that we really want to eat on
Yeah,
Christmas? So I'll make sure that I at least have that in the house. But it's never sort of like I've completely at this time moved away from the very sort of traditional Christmas of this is what we eat on Christmas, this is what we do, and being with people.
yeah. The one thing that is very traditional for us is that I make potato leek soup. It's we have it either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. We've been invited to someone's home for Christmas Eve, and I'll take it there as part of the meal. They've already said yes, that's great. Uh, we had a dinner party last night, and we have one scheduled Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. Three different. Yes, I know. And then and each one I cook for, and I always want to make it different. But I always want, my goal, Haley, is that when you walk in the house, you're transfixed and you're transported into another reality. It's so beautiful with all the candles lit and the music playing and snowflakes hanging on front of every window, and all the trees are flocked, around Santa Claus. And then the meal, I want you to be, again, thinking that you're at this 5-star restaurant and holding hands before the meal with people you love, and sending love to whoever. That for me is very special. And I don't have to have it on Christmas Day. In fact, Ray and I relax on Christmas Day too. Uh, Sort of it's over with for us. Christmas Eve
Right.
is the big time. But I really love the holiday. I love waking up every day and looking at the
You do.
decorations. I do. Oh, I love it. It's a lot of work to put them up. It takes days, and it's a lot of work to take them down and put them away, especially with the dog. But
Mhm.
I really love Christmas. And I was going to ask you one more thing before we talk about Einstein. Do you have really favorite Christmas memories?
I think my favorite Christmas memories were waking up with my cousins like at 3 a.m., 4 a.m.
Yeah,
and getting our stockings
yeah, yeah,
and sort of waking up the parents and them being like, it's way too early, go play with your stocking kind of thing. I think
yeah.
those are my favorite. And they were always at my sort of grandparents' farmhouse.
Oh, nice.
There's a smell about it. And then for some reason, like this color green is
Yeah, yeah,
a story. And it's, you know, being alone on Christmas isn't something I do from sort of a Grinch sort of perspective or Scrooge
right.
perspective. It's something that has just sort of transformed. Like my memories of sort of the very sort of Christmas trees and Christmas presents and sort of that childlike delight with Christmas I
Yeah.
still, and I love walking around and seeing people enjoying Christmas
Yeah.
decorations and that kind of stuff. I love that.
Yeah. Even if somebody, you'll sometimes go through a neighborhood that's economically stressed, but somebody will have one candle in the window and you think,
It's,
good for you, you're participating in your own way.
yeah, and I feel like it's just one of those things that is a celebration of humanity.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's for some, obviously because we're in the Western world, and that's something I've always grown up with, and you too. But it's just something that is sort of that Christmas spirit per se is something that is across everything. It's just such at a human level.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
I
love
love
that.
I love the story from, I think it was World War I, where the British were in one trench and the Germans were in another. But on Christmas Eve, they stopped fighting and went out and shared, drinks and cakes or whatever for that one moment. Because we are our better selves at that time, and then they went back to their trenches and tried to kill one another the next day. But for that moment, there's shared humanity. I have a lot of fun early Christmas memories, just like you, of waking up in the middle of the night, and I'd wake my younger brother up and say, Tommy, Santa's been here. I bet. Santa, come on, let's check. And so he would get up excited, and the two of us would run down. And then it jumps a big period of time, and Ray and I have created some really wonderful Christmas memories together over the past nearly 50 years. And I savor those. I send love to all the people who at this time of year feel lonely. It can exacerbate the feelings of aloneness for people. Just
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay,
I
so
think
you
there's an
have
enormous amount of pressure around Christmas Day
yeah, yeah, to have a very special,
to
you know,
have, going back to your movies, to have that kind of Christmas Day, because it's usually around Christmas Day that everybody they've fallen in love or
yeah,
everybody accepts it. And I
yeah,
think an enormous amount of pressure for everybody to have a perfect Christmas Day.
yeah, yeah. Perfect Christmas tree and perfect
Yeah.
Christmas dinner and all the family coming together and
And
you know,
everybody's happy.
yeah, and in none of these movies do people get drunk. I mean, and most of us have memories of family
There's
members
always,
getting
I think,
drunk.
and it's just one of those things that we just never really talk about. It's
Yeah,
like we all
yeah,
just brush that under the carpet and be like, my Christmas was perfect. Don't mind that. Don't mind that. Step over
yeah,
that. Over
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Mine's still perfect.
I block the bad ones and remember the good ones. And so what, I like living like that. So Hayley, before we began recording, you told me you had a great quote from Albert Einstein.
Yeah, it's a quote that's been with me sort of the last, probably like the last 2 months, 3 months or so. And it's Albert Einstein's quote that is, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that it was created in. You have to change the level of consciousness to be able to solve the problem. And for me, it's always sort of this wonderful reminder, sort of every day, how are you going to be better today? Because you can't do the same thing as yesterday because you're not the same person.
Yep, yep.
And it's, I think along with that quote is doing the same thing again and again and again is madness.
And I love, for me, we have friends who were over for dinner a couple nights ago, and we were talking about their daughter being stuck in a relationship that wasn't healthy. She was just getting out of it. And I shared with them, the image of the vibration, that we're all energy and that when we're aware that we're in the basement, where we're angry or whatever, creating the problems that Einstein was talking about, right? Gossiping about a family member or whatever. We really have the ability to look at what's going on, pull ourselves out of it, and go up. to a higher level of awareness and consciousness. We have it in us. I mean, all of us know what a beautiful day, looks like in terms of human reactions to each other, right? We know that returning the grocery cart to the designated area rather than shoving it, so that the next person who tries to park in your space can't get in, right? We know that that's not good behavior. And sometimes we say, I don't care. But the better self, solves the problem, like you were talking about, and says, I don't want to be like that. That's not the person I want to be. Even if somebody left a cart in my parking space, I'm not going to do the same thing.
It's one of the things that I think makes sort of having the commitment to being present and to being aware every moment of every day. It makes those sweet moments where you just notice humanity. You notice the people that are trying to be better. And noticing the people that are for me, it's very loud when I notice somebody doing something that is extraordinary. And that extraordinary little thing is, for instance, the other day I was on a motorbike with my friend, and there was a guy in front of us, and they put the helmets in these boxes, and he had his helmet in the box, but the box was open. So he went over a bump, and the top flew open, and the helmet bumped up and down, closed again. I packed up laughing because I thought that was comedic. But my friend pulled over like next to the guy and was like, hey, your back's open. And I was just like, I would have just carried on laughing.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the difference in humanity is that I'm enjoying the moment from a comedic point of view, where I'm like, that was a perfect moment. He went over a bump, this helmet popped like a jack in the box out of there, fell back down, it closed, over.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, no, I need to let him know that it's closed, like it's over.
Yeah.
It's
and then
those
you see the
moments.
behavior.
Like you're just
you
like,
see the behavior, and you think, I wish I had thought of that.
Yeah. Perhaps I could have been a little bit quicker off the mark there.
Well, the next time something similar happens, you will be.
And I think that's, we all are so interconnected and interwoven that we need to be able to see other people doing wonderful things, which inspires us to then go up in consciousness so that we're doing wonderful things too. And I don't think that you ever, until you're probably dead or enlightened, you don't really get to the point where you're always doing the best thing.
Well, and people ask with great interest and desire, and reflecting on so much stress that's going on in the world today. You have climate change issues that young people, fortunately, are very concerned about, and whole nations are concerned about, because especially in Africa, they're talking about how whole nations are going to be wiped out, not just by water, but because the crops will fail and people will be hungry. And then you're going to talk about immigrants and migration, but also what's happening in Israel and Gaza and the Ukraine, and lots of places where people just do not feel safe and valued. The question is, well, what can we do about it? What can we do about it? And my answer, and it feels lame to some people, is we talk about it in loving terms, and we role model what loving behavior looks like, because you and I can only control the space that we're in. What your loving kindness to the people in the market is what changes the world. It may not stop bombing, in Gaza, but it has a ripple effect, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's where this quote is so important. Because I think it's so easy right now to be caught up in the media and to be caught up in that frenzy of rage from whichever side you're looking at what's on the media today. And you're not solving any problems by meeting rage with rage.
No.
So I think, each one of us, and I know it feels and it sounds very lame in this day and age, to be able to be just super conscious of, okay, how are you behaving? How are you talking? Where are your double standards? Starting there and raising your level of consciousness is activism. It is doing something. And there's been, over the last sort of 2 weeks, there's been a lot of movement in terms of being able to see the truth of where the world really is versus what media shows. And there was some polling done, and I think I know the US was definitely included, but I want to say that there was also European countries included. But what this poll showed was 70% of the people in these countries want peace. They want ceasefires. They want coexistence.
Yep.
It's the politics that is out of whack with what the people want. And I think that for me raised a very big point, because it shows that we're all very present with humanity. We're all very, very present with love. There's just a disconnect. And I think now we can, with these kind of polls coming out and those kind of questions being asked, we can now see, okay, where do we need to make the changes? Where do those activists that feel comfortable being loud and proud, where do they need to be focused now?
I think for the 30% that would not say that they were interested in peace are regrettably the loudest, and they get the most attention.
They have, and I think they have the, I hate to say this, but they have the platform right now. They have the microphone.
Right. And we have to acknowledge, and it's really hard, and there are people who will get really angry at you for saying so. We have to acknowledge that they're hurting and they're scared and they're operating out of fear. Fear is the parent of hatred, and they're operating out of fear, and we need to understand it. Obviously, when it comes time to vote, we need to win to make sure that the leadership takes us to where the majority want us to go. There's no sense in telling the media to quit covering it, because the media has changed so much. You and I grew up in a day of 1 or 2 channels and a newspaper. Now today, people get their news off of the internet, Facebook, internet mostly. Some people still read a newspaper, but most people, are getting quick messages, and they go to the sources that support their position. So, there's no real dialogue there or understanding. But, I believe that of those people who make up the 30%, not everybody in their family agrees with them. And at some point, I believe someone in the family is going to challenge the thinking and say, you know what, I just can't hear you talk like that anymore. And so I don't think I'm going to come for Christmas dinner. And I think when those kind of things happen, the person who makes up that 30% thinks, well, what's going on here? I thought that, we were all together in opposition to this. But it takes time and patience.
It takes time and patience. And I think if you dial it all the way back to the individual level of individual activism, the level of consciousness that one person is operating at, I think all of us, in following our path and believing in ourselves and having the courage to be that black sheep who says, I don't agree with this, so I'm not coming to Christmas. That is a strong form of activism, because it enables that person that's in the 30% now to have the courage to be able to say, I know a few other people who have done this and they're okay, so I'm going to do it. That's not on media. They're not being influenced on media or social media. They're being influenced by individual people and individual experiences that we don't get to hear in the great media.
Exactly. I mean, as an example, racism, right? It's so pervasive, and I'm always wondering what a Black American or a Black person in a country in which they're not, celebrated, what's their day like, and how do they really feel about white people? So in my life, I go out of my way, to say good morning and how are you doing, and because I want to break through whatever stereotype they might have, that I see them only as an employee who stocks shelves or bags groceries. And I know I use that example a lot, but that's my garden, that's my world. And I'll stop and hug and ask people about their families, and because I want to break through any feelings they might have, just as there are straight allies who want me to trust that I'm safe with them, that that they've seen the movie that I loved, or they are opposed to the politician that is opposing me. That kind of behavior goes a long way in rippling, because the next time, let's say the black person in the aisle who's stocking, the next time he or she is at home or with friends and somebody makes a generalization about white people, they're going to think of me, and they're going to think, well, not everybody.
Right.
Not everyone feels this way. And we're so stuck in what do they call identity politics right now, right? That that it and I'm terrified of even saying anything, giving any opinion about Israel and Hamas. You open your mouth and you're
canceled.
Yeah, you're a Jew hater, or if you show any concern for the children, Palestinian children, you're a Jew hater. And you think, wait, no, I've been a supporter my whole life. I couldn't be less, Jew hater. But it's hard to take a position today and not lose your job.
To be honest with you, as I was talking before we started, I've had sort of gastritis for the last week, and generally I'm a healthy person and I pay a lot of attention to my body. So when I got gastritis, I was like, all right, what is happening here that caused the gastritis? And yes, my diet hasn't been fantastic, but the bulk of the gastritis in my case is stress related. So I had to look at where the stress was coming, and it was the conflict in Gaza and Israel, and trying to find my place in it and trying to find my grounding so that I don't feel like I'm just burying my head in the sand, but at the same time, I'm also humbling myself by saying, what is it that you can do? And I realized that created an enormous amount of stress within me. And so I've been trying to sort of swim my way through the mud to kind of figure out, okay, what is the best way of managing this? And obviously this quote helps, but there's another wonderful quote by Ram Dass, which is basically, if you're choosing a side, you're no longer in the flow.
Yeah,
you're
and the
no
Taoist
longer being in unconditional love. You're now choosing a side, so you are now creating resistance. And for me, that's been incredibly difficult over sort of the last 2 months now, going into 3 months now, is to not choose a side. And
Tao Te Ching says there's nothing so sad as having an enemy.
Yeah.
That, and that only happens when you choose sides. So at some point, you have to speak up with your values, and not saying
I
you're
don't
right.
think that's a side. That's value.
No, it's not. And my whole thing is, and it's really hard to do, but I think Einstein was talking about, is that you have to hear both sides. You have to hear them, and they have to hear each other.
Mm-hmm.
They have to hear why this is going on, because this opinion represents centuries of belief. It's not just the last 50 years, but this position represents centuries of belief too. And so is there a way to bring it, and the whole world is impacted by this, economically, emotionally. So how do we, as Einstein said, come to a different level, a different approach? How do we bring people to that level? And that's why you can get gastritis.
That's why I get gastritis. And I think for me, it's always humbling because for me, gastritis is a very egoic result.
Uh-huh.
It's me thinking I need to do something about this. I have the answer for this. I can fix it, which is very, very egoic.
Well, but Hayley, that is your world paradigm. You are a healer. People come to you for guidance, healing and energy. Where am I going? Where's the flow? So that's your job, and it's been my job too.
But it's in creating my world. It's not in fixing everybody else's world.
Exactly, but it's pretty hard to be a fireman, a firefighter, and even if you're retired, not run out and try to put out, the neighbor's fire. It's a friend of mine is retiring from a long career as a sex educator. She's asked me to do a Zoom with her class in April, and that would be the final one. And she said, "I'm retiring," and I said, "Sex educators never retire." Because there's always going to be a moment in which a conversation is going to come up, and we have accurate information to share, and we're not just going to sit there. We're going to share. So you're a healer, and I'm a healer, and
absolutely,
when situations come up that call for healing, it's frustrating not to,
It is, and being able to return back to sort of Einstein's quotes and Ram Dass's quotes, and there's another wonderful line in the Kabbalion, which is all truths are but half a truth. It's being able to remember those that can sort of bring me back to humility and be able to really ground myself and say, we're not going to fix, you're not going to be able to have any conversations if you're meeting it from a place of frustration.
Mm-hmm.
You have to bring yourself down to a place of what are my values?
Yeah.
And on values.
Yeah. Yeah. And how do I manifest those in a meaningful way?
Yeah.
I feel frustrated often on Facebook because I don't take positions on purpose. I certainly have a position. I have strong feelings about things, but I want my Facebook page to be a place that everyone could come to and feel inspired or healed. And there are people who I'm sure are frustrated with me for not shaking my fist, at their enemy, and join our voices. Why are you just keep talking about love, love, love? We're sick of love, love, love. We need vote. We need donation.
Yeah, we need that very sort of loud activism.
Yes, yeah. And so either lead or get out of the way. And it's hard to hold your space and continue to be loving as best you can.
A lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work to remember who I am and remember what I'm trying to do and to accept. That's
and who I hope to be.
Yeah.
Again, this, but Ray and I say every morning, I'm going to work today to be the person I aspire to be. I love us doing that because there are times in every single day when I remember that quote and I ask myself, is this the person that you aspire to be? And the answer is no.
And again, that brings us right back to the Einstein quote about you have to have these reminders. And I think for me, and as you say, having them throughout the day, that reminds you to step up that level of consciousness.
And peace and, and love and understanding. Hayley, I miss all those times that I was out there speaking on LGBTQ issues because I was in a zone all the time in which everybody was in my garden. You know, I needed to have every person in the room feel that I understood that they had issues too, that we're going to talk about mine today, but we're going to talk about them in a way that could be helpful with you. And I loved that zone. I loved being in that space. When you leave it, for me, this is just me, uh, you have to work harder to be in that space, because there are a lot, you're not getting paid, right, to be in that space, right? There's no feedback, there's no applause for you to be in that space. So I personally have to work harder on my isms and on my fears and on my lack of knowledge than I did while I was on the road.
Yeah. And I second that, because I've had to work harder than I have in probably 4 years to be present over the last sort of 3 months. And I realized that, and it has been sort of exhausting in that sort of conflict of, is this good enough? Should you be doing something different? Because that feedback no longer comes from outside, it's inside. It's checking with myself to make sure that am I doing enough? Would this be okay? And I think, we have to, for me and the way that I see things, we have to kind of take a step back and be able to come back to that very basic step of the one. Yes, we're all connected, but we need to be one in order to connect in. And it's, coming back to the quote that you were saying, am I being the best, or am I being the person I aspire to be? Very simple quote, but it's a lot of work to come back to that and be like, okay, let's stop everything. We need a moment, even if it's just a breath in the loo.
Yeah.
We need to re-baseline here and then go forward. It takes a lot of work. And I think there's a misconception when you're starting out on the journey that that's sort of a lot of hard work, and then it just gets easier and easier and easier and easier.
Yeah.
I think the work changes, the level of effort changes on the different things.
Yeah.
And I feel like I put just as much effort into being fully present today as I did when I first started out.
And that's because your consciousness is higher.
Mm-hmm.
The more we become aware, the harder we need to work. But the great thing about having committed ourselves to a spiritual path is that, we are going to the gym every day, and working out our spiritual beliefs, right? It's a practice. So people may say, well, gosh, you've read all these books, and you've read, you've written all this stuff, and it's got to be easy for you. But the reality is my view has changed, right? So I'm up a little higher. It's a lot of work to hold it, and to know that there's a higher way to go. There's still room for growth. But hanging in to where I am now is a lot of work. But I'm ready for it, because I've been flexing these spiritual muscles for so long.
Because we've also experienced the fruits of our labor too.
Yeah.
We know what comes after doing the work. We know what comes with it. So from that perspective, it's easier, because now you know the motivation, now you know the tools. It's just a matter of using the tools and being consistent with it. And, I think using the gym is a really good example there, because obviously you work out in the morning, but it doesn't just stop at the gym. You can't just go to the gym and then go eat a bunch of ice cream and cookies and consume a bunch of sugar and oils and fats. You have to be conscious of what you're consuming, whether it's drinking or eating, or the people that you're around, or the information that you're taking in. It's a constant effort.
And some people are overwhelmed by the challenge. But you know, but our help for them, the message that we leave along the trail, you know, that they're making themselves is, you know, be yourself
Mhm.
and love yourself. Be kind to yourself, because if you're kind to yourself and you love yourself, you're not going to feel uh, uh, disabled to love somebody else or to move forward.
Absolutely. I think that's such a key point, is that if you're kind to yourself, it's impossible to be unkind to other people.
Yeah.
It's literally impossible.
And I love that, don't you?
I, it's, you know, it's the sweetness of the journey.
Yeah.
It's the sweetness, and I'm very grateful and thankful to myself for sticking with it and staying with it, even sometimes not knowing what was coming, that I stuck with it for these moments, and that now I get to tell people it's worth it. Stay with it. Where you're going, you have no idea how beautiful it is. It's
Yeah.
beyond your greatest expectations.
And the message for me too, I did a Zoom call with a bunch of lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender employees of a corporation that I mean, they're all over the world. And so a lot of the people on the call were from, you know, all over the world. And it was supposed to be an hour and it ended up being an hour and a half. And, you know, they thanked me so much because, you know, they didn't pay me. I didn't ask for anything. I said, and I know people feel this is trite, but the gift is in the giving. You know, I said, I'm taking more out of this than you are. You know, my experience of giving you the benefit of all of my knowledge um, it is thrilling for me. It's energizing me. My soul is dancing again, and I'm delighted that you're getting inspired by something that I've shared. But you should feel it from this side.
Yeah. There's very few words that are big enough for that feeling.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I mean,
like,
you
thank you. You see, for my life, I've always felt like I didn't want to accept things because I didn't have the word that expressed how the receiving felt. And I
Mhm.
was always like, thank you is just too small.
Uh-huh. And
And it,
expect
yeah, it's just,
it's
what
like
is the
bless you.
word that matches that feeling of sort of receiving?
Yeah.
And, you know, gratitude, I think, is possibly the closest, but even for me, gratitude is such a tiny word for that level of receiving, and then being able to give from that receiving.
Well, you and I talked about this in a previous conversation, but we both love the word privilege. You
Mm.
know, I'm please know that it's been a privilege to spend this hour and a half with you. Now, that's pretty clear, you know, what we're saying. Privilege is pretty clear
Yeah.
that we're saying that it's you who have provided me, you know, this experience, not the other way around. And so I like that word.
I
And
love that word. I love the privilege of this experience because there's no labels. There's
right.
no race, gender, political, nothing.
Yeah.
It's just the experience, the time that we had, privilege.
Hayley, I know that we're running close to being
We got
done.
10.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a question that's not related to any of this. Um, and I wanted to ask my friend Pam, who was here last night, who is Black. Uh, are you conscious, Hayley, at any time that you're a woman in it and are being looked at as a woman in a world in which it's, you know, male dominated? Are
Yes,
you ever self-conscious of being?
always.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Because I'm sure that my friend Pam, they live in a systemic racist culture. Uh, her husband gets stopped by the police, and he's a brilliant guy just because he's black driving in a certain neighborhood.
I'm can only speak from being sort of a white woman. I'm very, being a woman, I'm always conscious that I'm a woman. So I always, and based on my experience with every other woman I've encountered, we always have sort of that sense of, am I safe? Is this safe? Am I doing anything to elicit this attention? So that goes from the time I wake up thinking about, oh, I want to wear makeup today. Is my makeup too much? I want to wear this today. Is that too much today? It's walking down a street and being very conscious of people staring, mostly guys staring, or guys feeling that it's okay to walk next to me. I'm very conscious in the gym that guys are looking at me. I'm also very conscious in the gym that I'm a white person in the gym, the only white person in the gym. So the white has really only come into greater illumination that I've been living in Mexico, because this isn't a white country, as sort of Zimbabwe or the US is. But it's something I'm constantly aware, 100% of the time, aware that I am a woman. I'm aware that I'm white, maybe 20-30% of the day.
Is that being white is a plus or a minus in Mexico?
It's a plus. There's an enormous amount of privilege that comes with being white.
Yeah.
Enormous
Hayley,
amount.
I was so, just a minute ago, I was taken aback when you talked about you need to be conscious about, what makeup you wear and what clothes you wear. I don't have to think a thing about that. I've never in my life thought about that.
And it's not from a, I want to look good.
Yeah.
It's is it too much? Is this going to get me attention that I don't want or that I'm not looking for?
There are gay men who, when they dress, are making the same decision because how they experience their gayness is more expressive. I sort of pass because there's nothing that I feel I have to do or say in order to love my being gay. A couple times, at a subway, somebody has said faggot because of the clothing I was wearing, but it was just suspenders. I was on my way to do a speaking engagement at a corporation, but they interpreted my dress as being, faggoty. But for the most part, as a male, I'm white. I'm just totally unconscious of how much energy women and people of color put into on a daily basis feeling safe.
And I'm now experiencing almost another level of that because I'm dating a guy that is from Chiapas and we're very different. I look different, he looks different. So, there is a lot of attention that we get because when we're out together, because I'm holding hands with him or we're being affectionate, and people will look at that because the skin colors are different.
And that makes you self-conscious.
I notice it. And I notice that when we're walking, there's been a couple times where people have commented and being like saying to him, oh, you've got yourself a güerita. A güerita here is a person with light skin or light hair, light eyes. A güerito or güero. And to that, I'm always like, that's kind of racist.
Yeah, I'm more than that. I'm more
for him, I've never really spoken to him about it and what he feels about it. But for me, I notice it. I hear it, and I hear it differently. And I notice to myself, like, Would you be saying that if I was a Mexican? Would you be saying that if he was a white dude?
You know, that it feels to me like that would be a great conversation to have, just as I'm grateful for and feel privileged to have had you share this example of what you're going to wear and how much makeup you're going to put on. I mean, I'm 75, almost 76. I've never even thought of that. I mean, I've heard about, oh, what was she wearing when she was sexually assaulted? Did she bring it on herself? And I've always thought that was awful. But I've not, thought it through to how that applies to all women. But I am aware that many straight men see women as something that they have access to if they want it. And it just it pisses me off, but it's just startling that people would have these sort of attitudes of supremacy.
And I think that's one of the beautiful things about this age. And I know that there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of taking sides and being afraid to speak up. But what it's really showing us is that level of supremacy that is existing in our day to day, that we have been, how we started this conversation, just brushing under the carpet those bad experiences of Christmas. We've been doing that for so long that we're now at a point in time where the carpet is so full.
Yeah.
We're having to look at these things and ask these questions, because I think that's ultimately double standards. We have to look at the double standards at the individual level to be able to solve them at the collective level.
Yeah. And again, you and I would readily accept the invitation, to have that conversation. And I think for me, this conversation is an encouragement to raise this topic. We have a couple of guys coming over tomorrow to play cards and have dinner, and I'm going to bring up, your example of the self-consciousness that women have dressing every day. And then a light bulb's going to go on for them. And that's how I think we, each one teach one, how we make change in our own, little sphere of influence.
We are pretty much out of time, but again, coming back to Einstein's quote, that is changing the level of consciousness.
Yeah.
So now, you were asking that question, you open up a tiny crack in somebody else's consciousness for them to just go home and think about and be like, imagine how I would feel if I had to worry about, do I look okay today? Am I going to get, attention that I'm not really looking for? That is the raise in consciousness. Just the awareness, just the questioning is a raise in consciousness.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And I think, again, not a whole lot of great news on the news right now, but we are seeing that more and more people at the individual level are asking the question, why is this okay? Why is the double standard okay? That's all we need to start with.
Yeah, I think each generation gets better and better at
Absolutely.
it. Where we are is pretty good from where we were, but it's far short of where we all need to be.
And let's be realistic about where that bar is of where we need to be.
Yeah.
In every single one of us, that bar is God energy. Whether it's Allah, whether it's God, whether it's the Buddha,
Yeah.
We all aspire to be at that God level. That's a high bar.
Yeah.
When you're a human being.
And the reality is that it is already there. It's just a matter of accepting and recognizing and manifesting it.
And letting it.
It's not out there for us to achieve. It's right here. It's, which dog are you feeding, love or hate? And so, Jesus, Buddha, they called us to see you can do what I've done.
Yeah.
You know, the Buddha is within you. The kingdom of heaven is within you. And that's enlightening if you accept that.
Absolutely. That's the change.
It is. That is the change, to say, my goodness, I have the ability to do that. And if I do it and I'm aware of it, then I'm in heaven. I'm in heaven.
For me, that's my motivation every day, to kind of just have a little chat with myself and be like, okay, where are you?
Yeah.
Are you focused in all of this other stuff? Or are you focused on what are you doing today? What is your next step?
That's right. Well, I
All
think
right.
we're on. Yeah. So we're not going to be talking before Christmas, I don't think.
No, I'm just gonna have a look at the calendar. I feel like Christmas is, so we'll speak again on the 28th.
All right. So have a wonderful Christmas.
Thank you, Brian. You too. Enjoy your Christmas. I'll be thinking of you.
I
And I'm
love
sure
you.
we'll both be relaxing on Christmas.
Yes, absolutely. For whatever that means to us.
Much love to you all, and we'll speak soon.
Bye, dear.
Bye.